Hello everyone, I'm Griffin and we are back with another reaction video. Bring my mic a bit closer. This time we are reacting to, these are the guys from the Whatever podcast. This video is called Brian Dismantles the Fallacy of Patriarchy. So let's see what these people have to say and whether I agree or disagree.
I do want to bring it back to what got us there though, which is the patriarchy. So can you give me some other examples
Other examples
of how we live in a patriarchy
oh
today?
Oh gosh, what's the statistic? I don't know what the statistic is. Isn't there a statistic about...
Well, I think that...
By the way, we don't live in a patriarchy, whether you want to believe it or not. Factually and logically, we don't.
Okay, I think what she's trying to say with
And
the
if any girls wanna
patriarchy,
come in.
I've taken a lot of like history classes and just sociology classes, that kind of thing. So I've actually learned a lot about it. Okay. Wasn't trying to show off there. I think that our society, since God knows how long ago, it has been a male-ran society. I mean, there's been so many instances. I mean, think about it. Like the whole stereotype of women stays at home, man like works, like blah blah blah. You know, men go to war, women stay and kind of take care of the kids. In my opinion, that's patriarchy, because that's kind of giving the men like this like higher role and like higher position in society. And I think that as society's progressing, it's becoming more progressive, and women are kind of, you know, the whole feminist movement, that kind of thing. But I think you can't deny that throughout history, women have been oppressed. You could also kind of go...
I would say, I don't think we should gender it, though. I think throughout history, men and women have been oppressed. It's really the apex fallacy. The patriarchy theory is the apex fallacy. You have a very, very small proportion of people at the very top which oppress everyone, both men and women. But
you don't think that there's... So are you, just to make your point...
I reject this idea of the patriarchy theory.
Do you support the idea of women have been oppressed in society?
I think
it is true. It's not... throughout history, it's not just one gender that have been oppressed. What he says is true. Both men and women have been suppressed. Now, at some point in history, was one gender a little more suppressed than the other? Possibly. I can't prove or disprove that because I haven't looked up the history of it. It is possible that one sex has been oppressed over the other, or, you know, vice versa. But it is a fact throughout the history of humanity that both sexes, male and female, have been oppressed. And they haven't been oppressed by their sex specifically. They have been oppressed by those who are in of higher status, status and power. So it's not that one has been suppressed and the other has not. So has one been suppressed more than the other? I have no idea. I can't say yes or no to it. It's possible, but I can't say whether or not it's true that one has been suppressed more than the other. But it is true that both have been suppressed.
Both men and women have been oppressed. Exactly. And I can actually, this is going to be the hot take here.
That was a hot take.
No, hold on. I can actually make an argument that men have been more oppressed.
Please make your argument right now, please.
This little segment, this little thing right here, I've seen on TikTok every now and then. It would show up on my For You page.
State your case, Brian.
Let me ask you a question. Throughout,
just hear him out. Just hear him out.
Let me ask you a question.
I'm hearing you out right now.
So throughout all human history, and I think that, you know what, this one probably squashes any grievance that I think women could conceivably come up with. Throughout all human history, what percentage would you say of military casualties, if you had to break it up between the genders? What is the percentage breakdown of military casualties?
Well, obviously,
so deaths and injuries.
Obviously, a significantly more amount of men.
99.99999.
But that's all.
it is vastly majority men, because throughout the history of military affairs, at one point, for quite a while, women were not allowed to join or take part in a lot of the military-esque operations and stuff. It was only men. I don't know when. I think it's in the past 100 years women were able to join, but were not able to join in actual war affairs, like battles and frontline stuff, like that. But vast majority of deaths and stuff like that, yes, is men. Because like I said, for a long time women were not allowed to join, whereas nowadays, I think it's in the past century, women have been able to join, and recently I think women have been able to join battle. I'm not sure if they're able to join on the front lines. I'm not quite up to date on military affairs. So
that's also because in the past women have not been allowed to
That's a privilege.
fight in the military.
That is a privilege.
Whether those women believe it or not, yes, that is a privilege for them not to be able to join. Because wartime sucks. It just sucks. But a lot of people would see it as a privilege for women not being able to join, because men are basically, nowadays, like if men want to vote, they are forced to sign up for being drafted. Like, men have no choice. They in order to vote, you have to be signed up to be drafted into the military, whereas women do not.
Do you think if women had been allowed, hold on guys, do you think if women had been allowed to join the military, they would be signing up in droves to get put through the meat grinder of war?
Well, it's also men literally want to be in it. Like, so many men. One of my guy friends told me.
There are men there are men who are battle hungry. So there are men who do want to be in the military, who do want to be in fights and in wars and stuff, but it is a minority of men. It is not a majority. The vast majority of men who join the military would prefer there to never be war, as the vast majority of the populace of the world would prefer there not be any war at all. But there are battle-hungry people who like it.
Me, actually, that all men at some point in their lives fantasize about being in the military.
You're right. A lot of men do. A lot of men are attracted to war. However, this hasn't been a consensual thing throughout human history. Throughout human history, you've had so many emperors and kings that literally just, they will send soldiers to your house. They say, all right, Tanner.
Even in Ukraine right now, going on.
Ukraine right now, people are getting forced to fight in this war. Men weren't allowed to leave the country in Ukraine. You realize this. Women were allowed to leave the country. Men were not allowed to leave the country in Ukraine because they were forced to go to the front lines, right into the meat grinder of war. They were forced to die. This is not something that's happened to women throughout human history.
But women haven't given the opportunity to. I mean, you can make the argument that how many women would, right? That's a good argument. But then you could also say women were not allowed to enlist.
Hang on, what does this thing say? They're talking about the patriarchy, but all want men that are stronger than them, taller than them, make more money, and are smarter than them.
All right, so World War III starts tomorrow. How many of you are enlisting?
Enlisting willingly?
Yep.
Probably wouldn't, but if they told me I had to go, I'd go. Suck it up.
You wouldn't have a choice.
Yeah,
you wouldn't have a choice.
You have to suck it up.
Her point is that women haven't had the option, so that's why it was all
Well,
dudes.
it's also, I actually come from a military family, my whole life. And sorry, I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. That's all right. My point was just simply that you guys are right. Almost all societies throughout history have been male dominated.
But a very small percentage.
It's by a very tiny percentage of men at the top who brutally oppress the majority of the men below them throughout society as well. And yes, women have gotten the raw end of the stick too, but dudes have had it bad as well for a long time. And we've had more rights in terms of property
Yeah.
and speech and stuff like that and voting, but it's been pretty bad for
those,
dudes for a long
those are
time
big
too.
deals. Like
War-
those are legal issues that women didn't have rights to.
Well,
I've said this in another video, but when it comes to voting, yes, one of the generations of the feminist movement fought to give women the right to vote, but a vast majority of the women did not want that right, specifically because what came with it was you being drafted into the military during wartime. Because of that stipulation for voting, the majority of women did not want the right to vote because they did not want to get forcefully drafted into the military for wartime. So that is it sucks, but after so long, women were given the right to vote, and they also were exempt from being drafted into the military. So whereas men, we are not exempt, we are still forced to be drafted in the military during wartime. So women are sort of privileged when it comes to voting in that respect.
now we're taking away.
Women couldn't vote.
let's
Remember
talk-
that?
I do.
Yeah.
I was alive back
What
then.
do you think about that?
wait, about what?
Do you think that women, if you lived back then, right, would you support women not voting? Do you think that that's right and just? Do you think that that's a decision for the men to make, that women are not competent enough to vote? Because that's what it was.
Well, so actually, Eric, can you pull up? There's a infographic.
Okay.
Eric, there's an infographic. on
Yes, I know
voting.
women can vote now. I'm talking about like however
It's
many
an
years
important
in
question.
history.
It's an important question.
Chris, go into the infographics.
Brian wants to move on to something else, but it's important.
No. It's related to the voting thing.
I'm not sure if it's been fact checked by Bill Gates' fact checkers. So.
Okay,
Very
so this is
So-
F11, Eric. Okay, so yeah, there you go. So percentage of population age 21 or over eligible to vote. This is in the UK. So, but I mean, okay. So this is like pretty, I'd say amongst Western countries, this is pretty much the case. So you'll know this before like the mid 1800s, it was pretty much a very small proportion of men had the vote. This concept of voting is an incredibly new concept. Before that, it was just tyrants. You had kings, queens. They're the ones who had power. A very, very small amount of people had power. Yes, there is a bit of a discrepancy there from about the 1800s to the early 1900s, but there is actually a reason for that. One of the reasons is because, and I think we've seen it. So if you want to just go ahead and bring it back, Eric. One of the reasons for you need to go F11 in this StreamYard window, Eric. Thank you. One of the discrepancies, or one of the reasons for that, is because men were the only ones that were subject to military conscription. So the way that men got the right to vote before women is we had to go in the trenches and die, and we had a say. We got the right to vote and elect a representative who would be potentially making the decision if we went to war. Women, even to this day in 2022, they're not required to. You have to register as a man. You have to register with a selective service to this day. We are still subject in 2022 to the military draft. So that's the big thing. That's one of the reasons why we got the vote before y'all, because we had to go and potentially die for our country. Women were able to secure the vote without the corresponding responsibilities and duties. So you actually got, when it comes to voting, you guys actually have an advantage over men. It was never about equality. You got preferential treatment in actuality, because none of you are subject to the draft, even today.
But what if some women
There are
want to
men
be
ar-
subject?
there are men
what
alive
if they want to be
today-
subject to the draft?
There are men alive today that were subject to the draft. They went to the Vietnam War. They're alive today, so some of them came back. They have probably.
Yeah, see, there might be some women who would be fine with being part of the selective service, but he is right. women do have a huge advantage over men when it comes to voting because they are not subject to the draft. So women got a much, much better deal than the men when it comes to voting.
Serious psychological issues. A lot of them are homeless. A lot of them just didn't come back and they're dead. Now, there hasn't been a draft in a long time, but we're still subject to it. And the way the world's going, it's certainly plausible that we could see. I mean, we see what happened in Ukraine.
Do you think that there's a World War III brewing? In your
I don't.
opinion?
Absolutely. Yep.
I don't know, but it's.
No comment.
I sure as hell hope we don't have a World War III. I'd rather not be drafted. I'm over 30. I'm severely out of shape. I have a bad lower back. I just I severely hope we don't have another world war. I don't want to get drafted. I really don't. I'd rather we work things out peacefully, but you know, we got shithead leaders, and so does the rest of the world.
Even if war isn't likely, men are. If we don't register with the selective service, we can potentially face criminal prosecution. It's
Do you
a
think
felony.
that there's going to be a draft? Do you think that there's a possible
Yes.
draft that could be?
It
I mean,
could
I'm just
happen.
asking out of pure
Yeah,
curiosity.
100%.
It
The
can
mil-
happen.
the military can't find enough able-bodied people right now because
Interesting.
it's still volunteer service right now, and they're struggling to hit their numbers.
My dad always says this, but I asked him this question the other day. I said, "Is it possible for there to be another draft?" And he told me he doesn't think so, just because of like the new way of fighting is just kind of like it's very technology based. I mean, I might be wrong, but
Gen 5 warfare.
right. And so wouldn't that require less troops because it's
There's still going to be a draft. I mean,
You still need troops for a lot of stuff.
It's true. There's a lot of like when it comes to air warfare, there's a lot of remotely controlled aircrafts that they can do and stuff that they can do for distance fighting. But when it comes to actual frontline stuff, you know, they'll need actual troops on the front lines and everything. They could have, you know, remote controlled tanks. I don't know if they do. But they still need to draft people for, you know, feet on the ground and frontline fighting and all that sort of stuff to, you know, make a base and, you know, all this sort of stuff to... I'm not particularly knowledgeable. My father would know more because he was in the military for 30 years. But they will possibly always need to draft people for on the ground fighting and frontline fighting. So no matter what, there'll probably always be a draft. Even generations after I'm dead, they'll still more than likely need a draft if our country is still together.
Like if you're going in, you can do a lot of warfare using automated vehicles or robots or whatever it is. But if you're going into another country, like you're going to need boots on the ground. And
now this is me not knowing anything,
That's
so this
okay.
is
That's all right.
appreciative of the information.
Yeah, no. And I personally think World War III is brewing. There's a lot of stuff brewing in the world right now.
Are you scared?
No, I have faith in God.
Valid answer. Okay.
I mean, if you want to talk about systemic oppression, to this day, men are systemically oppressed by the selective service. I know you're smiling, but the fact of the matter
It's
is,
a really important point.
if there was a war, we would be drafted and you guys would be exempt. And you are exempt from having to register with the selective
Can
service.
I have another example other than the draft?
Military
Another-
ain't
With
that bad.
systemic.
We're more likely to be victims of police killings and police shootings and police brutality. We're more likely to be incarcerated. We're more likely to delete ourselves. We're less likely to get sponsorships for college. We're less likely to go to college. More likely to be homeless. That's a few.
Okay, can I say something really quick?
Sure.
A lot of those things, like, I'm not saying they're not struggles because they are. I'm just saying that, like, a lot of those struggles are because, like, people in power just take men more seriously. And I think that, like, women's problems...
More seriously.
No. no, they do not. When it comes to the justice system, no, they do not. They take women a hell of a lot more seriously than they do men. Like, for instance, if a man was sexually assaulted or domestically abused, they they would believe a woman a hell of a lot more quickly than they would ever believe a man. Men have not been taken seriously in those subjects because a lot of people think that a man cannot be sexually assaulted, a man that cannot be raped, and we're just not taken very seriously in the justice system. Women are believed over men 9 times out of 10, unless a man can actually prove it, like have physical evidence and stuff. He's not really going to be believed. Generally, because men are biologically, we are vastly bigger and stronger than women. So more often than not, us men, when it comes to a lot of problems, we're told to suck it up, be a man, and deal with it. It sucks, but it's true.
We are the disposable sex.
Yes.
Men are the disposable sex. Women are valued. Women go to war, get killed, be a workhorse.
Yep.
But they
labor
do that
for
because
us.
they it's no secret that men are just physically more capable than women.
Well, that's
There's
part
a reason
of it.
these lights are on.
That's part. Different discussion. That's part of it. That's part of it. But the other thing,
Don't get it?
you're looking at this. Hold on, guys. You're looking at this through the lens of oppression. Okay. You're looking at this okay, men throughout history haven't taken women seriously enough to put them on the battlefield, right? Well, the other side of the coin is that women have been highly valued throughout history for their ability to bear children and everything else that you guys can do that men can't do. You guys are very highly valued for that. That's why today we're still the dudes that get tossed into the meat grinder and you guys are protected from the fray, okay? Childbearing women have been extremely valuable throughout almost all of human history because without you guys, the race, the culture, the civilization, the tribe can't go on. We're expendable.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's people only value women because of their fertility. They don't
that's
value their intellect. They don't value.
It's
What do
not
you
that
value
you're
men for?
just valued for your
What'd you say?
fertility.
What do you value men for?
It's not that you're just valued for your fertility. That's an incredible thing to be valued for. You guys have something that men don't.
Well, it would be nice to walk into a classroom and have all the guys actually listen to me for once. Because personally, I don't know about you guys, but every time I've tried to say something in class where it's predominantly male, mostly in my science classes and stuff.
Especially STEM, very much STEM.
You get talked over. People don't look at you the same. They don't take you seriously. They don't. And as a man, you'll never understand that. People don't take us seriously.
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, yeah,
Sorry to
that's
hear that.
something that
That's
we can't
unfortunate.
necessarily super understand.
But I can
this is
guarantee you a
also-
lot of women feel that same exact way.
But once you
That's something I can't
graduate,
emphasize.
and you have what are you studying?
Psych and brain science.
Psych and brain science. I mean, there's actually affirmative action for women in STEM programs in the education system, and also for hiring. If you're a computer scientist, software engineer, and you're a woman, you're getting a job.
I think that's great, but
That's a huge advantage for
But
women.
it's still not the attitude that is given to women. Even though they do, I do agree, affirmative action does help and whatever that. It's still the attitudes. That's what I said when I said there's still undertones of it in our society. I still feel like women are disrespected by men and looked down upon from my personal experience and from what I've witnessed.
People look down upon all sorts of people. It's not just women that are looked down upon. Low value
But
dudes.
it's a widespread
For
issue.
Low value, yeah, you're right. But low value dudes, for example, I bet there's a million dudes that you guys have met and they felt like you guys never gave them the time of day, and they'd probably have a complaint about that. It's just part of life.
For instance, think about a plumber, right? What I was saying about the lights, and didn't get that. Think the last woman who is an electrician that you guys met, who is a plumber, who keeps society rolling in a lot of the just municipal stuff that we have going on within our society. It's all men that are making $60,000 a year. They're working these blue collar jobs, wading through shit,
Just the
climbing up
hardest,
telephone
shittiest
poles,
jobs
the worst
ever.
stuff. It's not that bad here. For instance, there was that huge windstorm here a couple months ago. And there was linemen right outside my door, working on power lines
That
and whatnot.
one woman
I guess
is
it's
just
not,
staying
that's
silent
not
the
too bad.
entire
But you think
time.
about hey, if it's negative 40 out and there's a dude in Montana and the heat goes out, there's a dude getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning and below 40 negative, below zero, who's climbing up that pole, who's getting power back on so that people have heat and whatnot. And that's pretty shitty. And he's also doing that for $50,000, $60,000 a year.
And
I'm sure that's not fun.
I don't know. I literally do not know a single woman that wants a job like that, and that stuff is just left to the men. And it's kind of a raw deal, you know. Why don't chicks want those jobs? You know?
I want to add a little bit to this. I don't think we're trying to say that men don't have struggles, but I think the problem is that women also have struggles, and those struggles need to be taken as seriously as men's struggles.
Well,
and like,
yeah, of course.
Not
both
like
men
in
and women.
society, it just sucks that like,
well, actually,
as women, our struggles aren't taken as seriously. And a lot has changed, but like, it's still not completely equal.
Actually, I think women's struggles are taken far more seriously than men's struggles. There's almost no discussion about the struggles that men face.
What do you guys?
He's true in a lot. That's true in a lot of ways. A lot of struggles that women go through are talked about a lot more and focused on a lot more than any struggles that men go through. Especially the struggles that men go through in the justice system against women. We're not taken very seriously, and no one seems to really care. So, but yeah, I think both sides have some points, although the guys over here have argued against their points with some really good ones as well. But yeah, I think this was a great video. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. I do have a Twitch and other social medias. Same with Discord and TikTok and all of that sort of stuff are all in the description below. So please make sure to go check those out. If there are any other videos or TikToks or anything you'd like to see me react to, please make sure to comment them down below and I'll get to them as soon as I can. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.